Welcome everyone tonight. Okay, recording in progress. Cool. Thank you, Tony. Texoma Audubon Society would like to welcome everybody. I'm the president, Doug Wood, and our vice president with the Texoma Audubon Zoom name there is Tony Goza. We also have another board member here, Dr. Teresa Golden, and one of our executive board members, Patty Pyle. I see has joined us this evening. And we are honored to have a guest speaker, Laura Holbert. She is working on northern saw-whet owls. And our regularly scheduled speaker, Dr. Mia Revels, who she's working with, took a tumble and fall and is out of commission. And she asked Laura to step in for her. And since Laura's doing the field work, anyway, this is good practice for her as she begins her graduate program at Northeastern State University. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Laura, and she's gonna give her presentation. At the end, I think she'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. Yeah. All right, it's all you, Laura.
All right. Let's see. Nope, that's not what I want.
We can see your slide there.
Okay, I didn't let me. So you can see the saw-whet owl. Oops, you're good. Okay, I don't have my normal green box around it that I can see that it shows that it's there. Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Good evening. My name is Laura Holbert, as Doug mentioned. I'm a senior at Northeastern State University. I'll be graduating in December with my bachelor's in fisheries and wildlife. And I'm filling in for Dr. Mia Revels to talk about our research on northern saw-whet owls here in Oklahoma. So to begin, where do you even find northern saw-whet owls? This is a map of their range throughout North America. As you can see here, Oklahoma and Arkansas are this tealish light blue color, indicating that it's non-breeding and scarce. So not really here in the regular territory. So we first learned about the saw-whet research from our colleagues at the University of Arkansas. In November of 2015, Dr. Revels and I joined Mitch Pruitt and Dr. Kim Smith for an evening of their monitoring project. While we were there, they caught several different individuals, and it really inspired us to also participate in this research. On our drive back to Tahlequah, we were discussing how amazing these little owls are, and that this is definitely something that we could participate in research wise. The following year, in 2016, Abby Ramirez began her master's research project monitoring the autumn migration of northern saw-whet owls here in northeastern Oklahoma. That picture on the left of Dr. Revels she's holding our very first ever captured saw-whet owl in Oklahoma. You can see she's very excited. So the first ever documented saw-whet in Oklahoma was in 1925. From 1925, with the first documented sighting, to our beginning our research in 2016, there were only 15 records of northern saw-whet owls in Oklahoma. All of those were incidents considered as rare or listed as a straggler, lost during migration type of situation. This is a map of Oklahoma divided up by our counties. And we've got a little saw-whet image in each of the counties where saw-whets had been previously documented. So those 15 previous cases, we had 2 in Cimarron County, 3 in Texas County, 1 in Blaine, 1 in Grant, 1 in Oklahoma County, 3 in Osage County, 1 in Washington, and 3 in Tulsa County. you can see that there's the little red question mark in Cherokee County. That's where we're located at. Until we started in 2016, there had never been a documented sighting of northern saw-whet owls this far east in Oklahoma. To begin our saw-whet monitoring, we joined Project OwlNet. Project OwlNet was founded in 1994 to help document specifically owl migration throughout North America. This map is a little outdated. I think it was last updated in 2012. But it shows locations of stations specifically for banding and monitoring northern saw-whet owls. We took the liberty to add the St. Louis station, the first Arkansas station, and then our station here in Cherokee County, northeastern Oklahoma. I'm not sure how many other stations are missing. Like I said, it hasn't been updated since 2012, but the listserv shows a lot of activity throughout not just northeastern United States, but into central United States now as well. Project OwlNet has 3 main objectives that we also chose to follow with participating in this program. Support the continuing expansion of a network of migrant owl banding stations, adding Oklahoma to the map, increase that network, right? Standardize, so advocate for the use of a standard comparable netting protocol. Everyone who uses Project OwlNet follows the same netting procedures. Most of the time it is you set up 30 minutes before sunset and you check every hour on the hour for owls. In stations up north where they may get 1,000 owls in a season, they check more frequently because they have more owls coming in. If the temperature were to drop to be below freezing, or if it's rainy and misty, we would check more often to ensure the safety of the birds. But for the most part, it's every hour. For us, since we're at the southern range, we begin our monitoring from mid to late October through November and maybe into early December, depending on how the numbers keep coming through. Other stations will begin earlier as they migrate south. That date changes. So the process, this is the fun part. We extract the owl from the net. When the owl is there, we monitor and document what pocket and what net and what direction the owl flew in from. It's been found that north, south, east, west net lanes don't really have an impact, but we're still looking into if net 1, 2, 3, or 4 gets more owls, and if net pocket 1, 2, 3, or 4 gets more owls. We'll band the birds first. That's the most important thing, because if we were to accidentally let one go, at least it's banded and we can track that information. Then we weigh it, age the bird. We measure fat and muscle levels, take wing cord and tail length measurements, and then determine the sex of the bird using the weight and the wing cord length. Because these owls are sexually dimorphic in size, meaning that the females are larger than the males, most of the time we can determine if the bird is male or female. However, there is some overlap, which results in the sex being unknown. There's genetic testing that can be done to determine if the owl is male or female. We just don't have those capabilities at our station at this time. I know that the Arkansas station has been taking blood samples to determine the sex of their birds. This entire process, from putting the band on the bird to releasing it takes around 10 minutes per bird. Maybe a little bit longer if the bird isn't as cooperative. Maybe a little bit longer when it's the very beginning of the season and we're excited and nervous. Having it been a year since we've been able to do it might take a little bit longer, but on average it takes about 10 minutes to double check that all of our information is correct and releasing the bird. So I mentioned that we age the birds. The aging method here is really interesting and unique to saw-whet owls. Screech owls and I believe barred owls also have this, but they have a pigment in their feathers called porphyrin that helps us age them. The porphyrin fluoresces a bright pink color when exposed to a black light. And this is how we're able to identify molt patterns in the birds. You can also just use your eyes. I'm not that skilled yet. I know people who are able to age the birds without using the black light, and I'm not that skilled yet, maybe someday. But the first row is hatchier. You can see that the entire wing under the black light fluoresces that bright pink color. It's really uniform, just bunch of pink. Those are fresh feathers. It's a hatchier bird. The second row, you can see that there's a strong contrast between the fluoresced bright newly molted feathers, these ones here, the outermost primaries and the innermost secondaries. And then it has the non-fluoresced area being the older feathers, previous years. Third row, which is the longest that we can effectively age them just by molt pattern, is after second year. This shows 3 different generations of feathers. The white here that's retained in the juvenile primaries has about, here's about 3, but here's 1 to 2 that have no fluorescence. And then the primaries here that are really fluoresced, and then some of these secondaries, innermost secondaries as well. After the second year, they've completed a full molt cycle, and you're not able to reliably age them using this method anymore. Your most accurate method is if the bird's been banded previously, you can backdate it from there. So our season of saw-whets. 2016 was our very first year. It was just Dr. Revel's, Abby Ramirez and I running the station. We had 1 net lane set up, and we caught 18 new owls and 3 foreign recaptures. Foreign recapture here is an individual that was banded at a different location that came to us already banded, but that we didn't know at the time where it had come from, hence foreign. In 2017, we switched things up a little bit. We added an additional net lane and had some additional volunteers that helped us throughout the season. We caught a total of 20 new owls and 1 foreign recapture. So it was a pretty big season. One night, our largest night, we caught 7 owls within 2 net checks, and that was a really big, overwhelming deal when most of the time we would check, typically getting 1 owl every check or so. In 2018, we continued with the 2 net lanes and various volunteers, but we only captured 9 owls. This was just a slow season. We didn't have as many coming through. We started the same time, ended the same time, went out almost the same number of nights. just a slower season. In 2019, we didn't have anyone to continue the project, so we kind of took a 1-year hiatus. In 2020, we returned and we picked up where we had left off, but with a lot of different scenarios, right? So one, COVID had taken place, so we were no longer able to use our original banding site. Because of COVID, we were not able to have volunteers, so I actually ran the site solo. I only had one net lane since it was just me. I wasn't able to check each net every hour. I would be constantly on the go and I wouldn't have time to properly process the owls. So I only had one net lane, had to move to a different site. And then halfway through the season, I had to change sites again due to hunting on the private property that I was at. So of the 11 owls that I caught for that season, 5 of them were captured at site A and 6 of them were captured at site B. Overall, pretty good season, I think, considering all of the changes that had happened. 2021, last fall, again, because of COVID, we're still not able to use our previous banding sites. So just like in 2020, we were down to 1 net lane. I ran the station solo and had to move sites again due to hunting halfway through the season. Between really warm weather and a lot of rain, there were a lot of cancellations this last season. And so we ended up with only 4 owls being captured. Not the greatest, but due to not consistent sampling, due to reasons out of our control, and a lot of variable changes, we decided that that we should try regardless. That even if we only caught 1 owl, that would be data that would be worth collecting. So in our 6 years of banding saw-whets, we'd had 4 already banded foreign recaptures. Our first visitor flew in from Port Rowan, Ontario. It was banded on October 15th, 2015, and we captured it in our net lane on November 5th, 2016. Our second foreign recapture, we caught that following night. It was banded just a few months earlier on August 30th, 2016, and we caught it that following night, November 6th, 2016. Then for our second season, we caught, and that one was from Duluth, Minnesota, sorry. For our second season, we caught 2 foreign recaptures as well. One was from Wisconsin, banded just exactly a month earlier than when we caught it. So it was banded on October 9th, 2017, and it flew into our nets November 9th, 2017. And one of our more interesting foreign recaptures was banded at our University of Arkansas station by Mitchell Pruitt the year before. So Mitchell caught and banded this saw-whet on November 4th, 2016, and then she flew into our nets November 13th, 2017. So that was pretty exciting to see. It wasn't necessarily a direct same route, right? Although the near Fayetteville, Huntsville location, it's a little ways, hour or so west of us. Is still a pretty big difference, I think, for a bird that weighs only 3 ounces. So our 2020 and 2021 results, we had 8 females in 2020, 2 males and 1 unknown. Again, I mentioned earlier that you could sex them if we had the DNA sampling, but we don't at this time. Maybe something that we could look into in the future. Of those birds that we had captured, 7 of those were hatch year birds and 3 were second year. Last year, I said we only had caught the 4 owls, but of those 4, 3 of them were second year. Other stations had reported similar results with their ratio of second year birds being significantly higher. The idea was tossed around that maybe younger birds migrated earlier, but I haven't really heard anything on this subject since. But it was definitely something that was in the listserv that we were talking about, lots of second year reports, when typically our hatch year numbers were significantly higher, but it was reversed this last time. So over the 5 seasons of research, we've gathered new information about the timing and the demographics of these small owls migration. So something really exciting happened this last fall, even though we only caught 4 owls. This past fall, we had our very first owl be recaptured by someone else. Our only hatch year of the season was collected by an animal shelter north of Dallas. The owl was alive when it was brought in, but died overnight due to trauma from collision. They did a necropsy and found blood in the brain and in the lungs. So some sort of collision, maybe a vehicle. I banded this owl on November 18th and got the report that it was captured in just north of Dallas on November 30th, which is 208 miles as the Saw-whet flies. So that was very exciting, very sad that the owl didn't make it, but really interesting that she made it that far. So our 2016 to 2021 combined results, we had 61 owls total. 45 of those were female, 10 were male, and 6 were unknown. So we've established that northern saw-whet owls move through Oklahoma in the fall, that they're just really quiet and really difficult to detect. This map shows where some of our owls have come from compared to the Arkansas station. So you can see the northern stations of the line are where our owls were banded and then captured here in northeastern Oklahoma. And then the Arkansas stations are the white lines. Sorry, the Oklahoma lines are red. The Arkansas lines are white. And you can see we both have had ones from Duluth, and we both had individuals banded from Wisconsin. So it's just kind of interesting to see the distribution of where our owls have come from. We put saw-whets on the map for Oklahoma ornithology. Really exciting, really thrilled that we were able to successfully show that they are here. We had several people tell us that we were wasting our time, that they weren't here. Those were all accidental lost owls, and they were wrong. We know that they're here. That's 61 isn't as big as the hundreds of thousands that are up north, but really good for Oklahoma, really good start for our research. Bycatch. So I do want to say that before we ever caught a saw-whet, we caught many bats. We caught eastern red bat, common pipistrellus, tricolored bat, and silver-haired bat. And we eventually figured out that on nights we were catching bats, it was too warm for us to be catching owls. So we kind of adjusted on what nights we were going out based on the weather. I think there was only one night that we caught an owl and a bat in the same night. Some non-target bird species that we caught was a hermit thrush, a northern cardinal, and a northern flicker. These 3 individuals were captured while opening the nets last season. Because I was running the net lanes solo, I had to go out a little bit earlier to open everything and make sure everything was good. The audio lure was working, all of that. And by the time I would open one net lane and make my way down to the fourth net, there was usually a bird that had flown into the first one when I was making sure that they were okay. But all species here were quickly extracted from the net and safely moved away from the net lanes and released. No harm to anyone. So what's next? This fall, I will begin a trial study using automated transmitters to help monitor the migration routes of these small and previously undetected owls. I'll be using MODIS wildlife tracking system. MODIS is an international collaborative research network that uses coordinated automated radio telemetry to facilitate research and education on the ecology and conservation of migratory animals. MODIS is a program of Birds Canada, and in partnership with collaborating researchers and organizations. Really looking forward to this fall being one of those collaborating researchers. Initially, MODIS started for birds that are too small for satellite transmitters. The overall project has since expanded to include bats and larger insects as well, or birds, bats, and bugs. There are several different species that these transmitters have been placed on with various sizes. So for birds, some of the ones that have been studied are the Swainson's thrush, barn swallow, and Canada goose. So really different sizes, different transmitter types are used, but it's all the same automated radio telemetry. Bats are used for this research as well. 2 of the species that were on the list that I saw were little brown bat and eastern red bat. And then the bugs, monarchs have some of these tags, common darner and the buff-tailed bumblebee, really small guys, way smaller than my saw-whets, that are also getting these transmitters placed on them to monitor their migration. This automated radio telemetry, they currently have 294 different species that have been tracked with transmitters, including over 300 individual saw-whets. So this is a current map of the MODIS towers throughout the United States. As you can see, the stations are predominantly located throughout the Northeast. MODIS is based out of Port Rowan, Ontario in Canada, which if you remember, is where our very first foreign recapture was banded in 2015. Within the last couple of months, MODIS has been collaborating with various Canadian universities to try and expand the coverage of the MODIS system from coast to coast in Canada. We're really looking forward to adding a station here in Northeast Oklahoma. You can see that there's one in Tulsa. That's actually at the Tulsa Zoo. I went and toured their facility a couple of weeks ago and spoke with the people that are running the project and got some tips, pointers, things to look out for, things to do. And I'm really excited to begin this project this fall. So Oklahoma falls into this dead zone for MODIS towers, just like the rest of the central US. And we want to change that. So we're still working on covering the financial aspect in regards to purchasing the radio receiving station equipment and the individual transmitter tags that will be deployed. Once funding has been taken care of, the tower will be put up and ready to receive whatever passes within 10 miles of the station. I believe that radius will be larger because of the place that we're putting the tower is the tallest building in Tahlequah, and it has a very unobstructed range. And so I'm really excited to see how far it can actually transmit. And then the transmitters will be deployed this fall on Saw-whet so that the migration route tracking can really begin. I also want to say that these towers will transmit any of the Modus transmitters. So it will register monarchs that fly by. It will register any species that's tagged with their product. So this will benefit other researchers, not just us. Funding has been provided by the Indian Nations Audubon Society, John Nichol himself, Northeastern State University, the Oklahoma Ornithological Society, and the Payne County Audubon Society. And I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Mia Revels and Abby Ramirez. Without those two ladies, this project would not exist here. I want to say a big thank you to Albert and Gail Harris, Dr. Tony Stancampiano, and the JT Nichol Preserve from the Nature Conservancy for letting us use their land to set up our field stations. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Laura. I think we could probably unshare the screen and then see if anyone has any questions, comments, thoughts. Don't be bashful.
Why was there so many Modus sites in far northwestern Texas Panhandle? It actually looked like there was a couple maybe in the Rita Blanca grasslands in Oklahoma. There was 12 if I counted correctly.
I don't know. If you go to modus.org, you can look at their map, and it's interactive. You can zoom in, you can click on the stations, you can see who's doing the work, and where they're located and what their title of their work is. A lot of that can be made private, but a lot of it is public access. But I haven't looked that far. I've really mostly been focusing on Northeast Oklahoma, Northwest Arkansas, Southwest Missouri. Those stations also are not just northern saw-whet owl. Those stations that are on there are just registered Modus towers. So I don't know what they're researching.
I would guess maybe bats and possibly birds related to the wind turbine farms that were being placed out there, but that would just be a guess on my part. And just out of curiosity, do you have any idea roughly what it costs to put up a Modus towers?
So we'll be doing it on our own. We won't, a lot of places will hire someone, and that makes it more expensive. We're looking at about $5,000 for everything. And that would be equipment being purchased and installation and all, and maintenance and upkeep.
You said these saw-whet owls are migrating through. Where are they headed?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I mean, so I think it was our second season, we had some local transmitters on the owls, and Abby used a Yagi to go and see if they were hanging around the area. And some of the owls with the transmitters hung out until February, March, and then were out of our range. So we don't necessarily know where they're going or how far south they're going. I mean, the one was caught in Dallas, so we know that they're going at least to Dallas sometimes. That's kind of what I'm hoping more Modus towers will help with. being able to really see where they're going and where they're coming from and returning to.
I think there was some discussion of adding banding stations in the East Texas piney woods, things like that, because they're going to start running out of habitat there fairly soon.
Yeah.
There was a question in the chat room from Lori. Do you allow people to come participate during banding?
In the past, we have. Our first season was solo, but then after that, we allowed visitors to come in and assist. With COVID, that's kind of been shut down, and I'm not sure where we're at for this fall. We're trying to go back to our original banding site at the Nickel Preserve. But that's kind of a limbo area right now, but we're wanting to get back to where we can bring in visitors.
Will you at least have any help for yourself this coming season?
I do. So we have, Dr. Revels has another graduate student that she's brought in, and she knows that she wants to do something with the owls. She's just not sure at this time what her research is going to be, but she'll be out there with me. So I'll have somebody to keep me company and keep me up till after midnight to check my nets with me.
Yes, I had a question. And I'd like to know how do they put the transmitter on a bee?
So I don't know. I'm assuming that it's probably similar to that of the Monarch, where it's like a little sticky transmitter that just kind of goes on the wing.
Okay.
But I didn't really look. I just saw that it was on the list and I was like, oh, that's really small. Let me add that to the insect.
Are these RFID transmitters? Because I would think they would be hard to power something like that.
So there's a couple of different types. I'm not sure which ones are for the insects.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have some RFID ones, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I had a question about, are you familiar with differential migration in bird species?
Maybe.
Okay. I know just very anecdotal in your data, you have this real bias towards female northern saw-whet owls.
Mm-hmm.
In several species like northern hares and others, there's differential migration by gender. So you'll have, like, farther north, you'll have a band of males primarily. They're going to go back to territories to establish before, and then females migrate farther south and arrive later on the breeding grounds. It's possible that may be happening with the saw-whets here. If that data is consistent across the Arkansas data set as well, might be interesting to collaborate with the other banders on that, see if that trend is there.
Yeah, for sure.
Good idea.
Other questions?
I was wondering, how do you choose your netling locations? And is it on public land? Is that why the hunting was affecting it?
So the two locations that I've used the last 2 years were both on individuals' private property, and both of those individuals hunt on their land. And so I had to either decide that I could move locations and work around their hunting schedules, or just cut my season in half. And I just decided to bite that and just split up both of my sites. We look for something with a lot of gymnosperms. Like a dense understory is preferred, something that's going to be sheltered, because they are small owls that, like, they could be a prey species, right? One of the things to look out for when banding them is predators, because there have been barred owls that will fly in and grab them out of the net. And so we like to have a dense understory. We've found that it's not absolutely necessary for it to be more conifers. We've caught some in more just shrubby area. so that's something that we're kind of messing around with our different sites. But we do prefer to have some evergreens and dense understory.
I gotcha. And then I think you mentioned an audio lure. What is
Yeah.
that? And like, does it attract barred owls and stuff like that too?
So I'm not 100% sure on what call we have. Something in the back of my mind reminds me that that's why it may be the male call, and that's why we get more females. But I can't exactly remember. We have a speaker that's used specifically for animal lures, like audio, and so it's really loud.
Mhm.
And we place it in the middle of our net lane and play their call, which I totally skipped over in the presentation. That was I went to play their call. We play their little toot 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 call, and it draws them in. Either they're curious of why are you down here vocalizing? Is there food? Like I'm not sure what call, but yeah, the lure is what brings them in. And I'm 100, I can't say 100% sure, but I'm very certain that without the lure we wouldn't catch anything. And then we haven't had issues with barred owls, but stations up north definitely have had the lure bring them in because the numbers are more abundant.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Nadine and I participated in a banding one time. She has a friend that works for the World Bird Sanctuary on the west side of St. Louis. They've
Mhm.
banded saw-whet owls for years and years. And so we went there to the station one night, and I was quite surprised how open their habitat was. They said their parameters were a north-facing slope with a riparian wet area fairly close by. And they had their banding station up kind of on top of the hill, and then the net lanes kind of weave down the trail to the bottom of the hill. But it was very open. There was no understory at all. I mean, you could see all the way down the hill once you got to where you could get over the edge. But I was quite surprised. But of course, there are very strict rules that they have to use. They play their lure at 95 decibels. So I guess to attract owls from as far away as possible, because they know
Yeah.
that these birds are migrating, so that they're not interfering with nesters or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I was quite surprised what their setup was.
Yeah, our lure is definitely very loud. I don't know what the decibel is, but I know that I have to mute it because my eardrums like pop while I'm out there. And the reason that we chose more of a dense understory, particularly with conifers, is because that's the breeding, that's like the preferred nesting habitat. And so we just kind of followed that same habitat. I don't think that it necessarily has to be. One of the owls that I caught last season was at my very first net, and it was really open. And so there's just a lot of variability. I think we just feel safer sticking with a denser understory.
Do you use also north-facing slopes? Is that similar kind of protocol?
They found that the direction doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So I couldn't actually tell you what direction I had the nets facing these last 2 years. I mean, I could figure it out, but it didn't have an impact on, at least not the first year, catching anything.
Any other questions for Laura? I see all sorts of interesting research possibilities that stems out from this. Maybe comparing different vocalizations, male and female vocalizations, see which one they respond to more. I also thought I heard there was some talk about maybe somebody doing banding in the Ouachita Mountains. It seems like that would be a a good place. Maybe that other grad student might be interested in working there to see if there's similar results there and pick up some of the birds that come through your area
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I tell you what, I want to thank everybody for attending this evening. We have several events coming up. Friday the 22nd is Earth Day, and there's going to be events at the Durant Middle School. So if anybody's interested in volunteering for that or participating in it, we posted some info on our Facebook page, and I can provide that. Then I believe our next field trip is going to be at the Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge on the 23rd. So that's a Saturday. So hopefully we'll see some of you at the field trip. The other thing I wanted to plug was membership. If you've enjoyed programming like this, I encourage you to join Texoma Audubon. Students, including college students, it's a free membership. You just have to apply. So that you can find all that on our website, texomaaudubon.org. Any other thoughts, questions, things of bird interest? Laura, if you'll just stick around for a few minutes. Otherwise, folks, if you want to go ahead and log off, thank you again to Laura.
Thank you.
In the chat there.